Hey guys, today I wanted to make a quick video and show you how to replace the brake pads and rotors on a 2012 Chevy Equinox. This is my wife's car, and I noticed the other day when I got in, when I was braking, I was feeling a lot of wobble from the front brakes. So I think it's definitely time for the pads to be replaced, and I'm pretty sure that we've warped the rotors, so I was just going to replace those to be safe. So the first thing that you're going to do, you're going to go ahead and make sure that the car is jacked up and that you have a jack stand underneath it, and remove the tire. And then it will look about like this. Once we have it to this stage, we need to remove the caliper here, and that will help us to be able to release the brake pads and then to be able to get to the rotor as well. And so here on the back side, there are two bolts that hold the caliper onto the frame, I guess, the wheel hub. One at the top and one at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and remove both of those bolts, and then we'll take the caliper, and we want to be really careful about this hose here, that we don't kink it, tear it, rip it. So we'll lift the caliper up and set it here on top of the brake and keep the tension off this hose. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then once we have it here to the next stage, I'll show you what we're gonna do. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys really quick kind of where we're at. I took my socket wrench and really had to pry on these things to get them to start coming loose. We're at the point now where I can finger thread out these two bolts. We're going to finish loosening that top one, and then, like I said, we're going to lift the caliper up and put it on top of the brake, being very careful with this hose here. But these are the bolts that you want to remove here, and then down below. Sorry, I wish I could get a better angle, but that's the best I got. Alright, so we loosened and removed those bolts that was holding the caliper onto the car. And then we lifted the caliper up and just set it here on top of the brake. You can see this hose here is just kind of a slow turn. I was very careful about how I set this up on top of the brake. We don't want to kink that, break it, rip it, anything like that. Otherwise you'll start to leak brake fluid, and eventually your brakes will stop working. So be very careful that we are gentle with that hose. Enough of that. So now we've got free access here to the rotor, and let's go ahead and we'll remove that. The first step is going to be to use the appropriate tool and remove that bolt or screw that is holding the rotor on to the car. And once you have that out, then we can just go ahead and the rotor should slide off the car. Now, a little word of advice, I guess. If your rotors are like mine and haven't been replaced for a long time, they may be kind of rust bound onto the car. So you can take a hammer or a rubber mallet, and we're going to want to thump on it a little bit to get it to come off. I had good luck hitting here between the wheel studs to help loosen it up. Don't hit here on the outer rim of the rotor if you're planning on reusing it, or maybe just having it lathed and redone and resurfaced and then putting it back on the car. You don't want to be dinging this up. I would hit just around here. We have new rotors, so I don't really care. I'm just going to hit it from every angle until this is loosened up, and then I can slide the rotor off the car. Alright, so it took some persuading, but we were finally able to get the rotor off the car. If you are replacing the rotors and you're not worried about saving them, I found the best thing was to kind of hit towards the top, then towards the bottom, towards the left, towards the right. Top, bottom, left, right. And by having it kind of begin to flex one way, flex the other, back and forth, that finally got the rotor to release, and then it pulled right off. I tried just kind of smacking in one place or trying to smack it from the back, and hit it forward, and that wasn't working. So I would maybe recommend that kind of a pattern if your rotor is almost seized on the tire and really hard to get off. So now that we've got the rotor off, we can go ahead and put our new rotor on. Ours is just coming out of a package, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab it. I've heard that you don't want to get the oils from your hands on these new brakes, so you may want to don a pair of gloves and use that when you're handling your new rotor. Let's go ahead and we'll get that new one installed and show you what that looks like. Alright, so we have the new rotor and it's been put on. We went ahead and tightened up the screw that helps hold the rotor onto the wheel, I guess the hub, and it's nice and snug. And so one of the things that we're going to want to do before we get too far along is to just spray that down with some brake cleaner. Make sure the surface of that doesn't have any oils or contaminants from either your fingers when it was manufactured. We just want the face of that rotor to be as clean as possible. And so we'll go ahead, we'll spray that down here in a second. But up here in the caliper, one of the things that we're going to want to do is to retract that piston so that we can go ahead and put in our new brake pads. We already went ahead and popped out the old ones. They're in a heap on the ground there. The easiest way that I've seen to do this is to take a big C-clamp. I just have one sitting around the shop here. I put it on the back of the caliper, and then I've just been using a little socket to sit between the C-clamp and the head of that piston, and then I slowly tighten the C-clamp and retract that piston back. So let me go ahead and get this set up, and I'll show you what that looks like as we retract that piston head. Alright, so I just kind of wanted to show you the setup that I use. This is kind of the jerry-rig version of how to retract that piston head back. This is just an old C-clamp that I had lying around the shop. And so you can see I've got it kind of pressing against the back of the caliper here, wrapping up and around, and then I just use this socket, and what that socket is doing is just helping to fill the space so that as I tighten that C-clamp, it presses that piston head back in. This is the easiest way that I have found to be able to get this thing to work. I think they make an actual tool to help retract piston heads. So if you're at a nearby AutoZone and want to swing by and either buy or rent that tool, you could do it that way too. But one way or another, you need this circular ring that's in here to retract back down in, and that'll give you enough space to put the new brake pad on. Alright, so we just tightened up that C-clamp and pushed that piston head back in. Now it's time to put in our new brake pads. So you can see here the new ones definitely have a lot more tread than the old pieces of junk on the ground, so it'll be good to have the extra space so that we can get it in over the rotor. I went ahead and took this plate here, was off the old brake pad. I unclipped it and just put it on here. I don't know that it's 100% necessary, but it looks like it kind of helps protect the back of that pad from the pressure of the caliper. So I thought it would be good to have on there. You can see this pad has the clip. That's going to go on the side towards the caliper, or towards the piston. And then the other one does not have this clip, and it's going to go on this outer side. So what we're going to do is you're going to kind of want to match the circular pattern, and then it will just slide in. There's some little notches and things, but you just play with it a little bit and you'll slide the brake pads in. Sorry, I would show you, but I've only got one hand. So we'll go ahead and slide those in and then move on to the next step. So you can see here that we got the new brake pads just slid in and they're being held on. So the next step is going to be to go ahead and mount the caliper. But before we do that, we're going to want to take some brake cleaner and just clean off the face of that brake. so that, like I was saying earlier, all the contaminants, anything that could cause an issue with your braking is gone and off the face of that rotor. So it takes a little bit of finesse, but we get that lined up with those pads and it should just kind of slide up and over. And then it will help to have a bolt ready that you can line at either one of the top or the bottom holes and just kind of finger thread that in. And once you've got that, you can kind of relax a little bit. That caliper can get kind of heavy, so having one of those bolts ready will definitely help. The next step, we're just going to go ahead and line up and put in the bottom bolt. We'll use our socket wrench to tighten those up very tight, and then we can go ahead and put the tire back on and you're good to go. And then you will have a brand new rotor with brand new brake pads. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to kind of walk you through what I did and